It's been 25 years since the Bre-X Minerals scandal, the biggest ever mining scam. Our next guest visited the site. He made money long and short of Bre-X, and he's got some perspective after all that time about his experience. He also made a fair amount of money. Let's bring in Warren Irwin, the president and CIO of Rosso Asset Management. Now, my mother always told me it's rude to talk about money, so I'm not looking for numbers, but did you actually make what's considered generational wealth to the point where I actually don't really need to work anymore? You did that well, or you just did well?
Well, it depends where you live. I had a little bit higher expectations. I made about $3.5 million, and that was 25 years ago as a 31-year-old kid. So that was, that was good dough. Back
Yeah,
then.
I would
back,
think so.
Back when you could buy something with $3.5 million.
Exactly, yeah. So you made money going long and short, and I'm just wondering, and as I said, you visited the site, you were very close to the story, you have a lot of opinions. So with the passage of time, looking back at it now, what's your perspective on Bre-X and your experience with the whole story?
Well, the biggest benefit to me is not the money I made at the time. The biggest experience to me is it taught me a lot about investing, taught me a lot about doing due diligence, going to sites, and when you start questioning things, something doesn't seem right, just keep digging till you find the right answer, because there's always a logical answer to anything that seems weird. And I've learned that, and it's really cranked up my ability to do research, and I dig possibly deeper than I think a lot of people do.
And so would you say that to this day, your experience with Bre-X informs your decision making? It's just always in the back of your head.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely was quite an interesting and traumatic experience for me. Being a punk kid just out of MBA school with a $5.6 million position at the peak, wasn't that long before that I didn't have any money, so
Right.
It was quite a change for me, and it was a real head game, and anybody who's around that time really knew the ups and downs, the swings, the fear, the greed. You saw all the market indicators to a huge extent, and it was a very fascinating time, very fascinating.
Right, quite a time for a 31-year-old with maybe not a lot of experience just yet in the business. So as you remember it, can you take us through your thought process? Because I know you managed to sell some shares near the peak around 280. I think your contractor wanted some money for the house he was working on for you, right?
Yeah, my builder, Tony goes, Warren, I need some money. So fortunately, I said, I've seen my friends blow up before financially, even at that young age. And I said, well, now might be the time to take myself off the $1 million margin I borrowed and maybe sell enough to pay my builder, Tony, to build my house and pay all my taxes. So I did that at 280, which was extraordinarily good timing for me. I wish I sold it all, but I didn't. And then they carried about half my position going forward from there.
Okay, so you've been to the site of Bre-X Minerals in Indonesia, and then you have this chance meeting with this aging geologist. Well, we're all aging, but Dale Hendrick, who I believe in an elevator said, I think it may be a fraud.
Yeah, Dale was it was an extraordinary win for me to meet him in the elevator, and Dale was amazing, and he's just passed away the last few years, but he was an amazing mentor, not only during Bre-X, but in years subsequent to that, to show me the ropes and all the scams in mining and how the miners cheat investors. So a number of people are on my butt right now in my golden years to write a book about all the ways I've learned and people have tried to cheat me over the years in the mining business. So that's possibly on my to-do list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And so you do some more research and you realize, you know what, Hendrick's right, it is a fraud. So you sell in the low 200s, and then is it pretty well the same day you go short?
Yeah. I basically blew out everything. I went short, and I was proprietary trading at Deutsche Bank at the time. And they hadn't given me permission to trade Bre-X for the bank, so I was trading it personally. But they saw the amount of money I was making, so they wanted a piece of it. So what we were able to do is I bought a whole bunch of put options on behalf of the bank, and then I shorted the stock personally. So we trading two different securities, so it didn't lead to a conflict. But they wanted a piece of the action for sure.
And was it hard to hang on and not cover your short until 9 cents on BreX?
Yeah, certainly. It was a hairy ride, trust me, because there were rumors floating around like crazy, and one of them was, my favorite one was, the stock I think tripled in a nanosecond one day when somebody said Jim Bob Moffat of Freeport-McMoRan resigned because he lied about there being no gold at BreX, and the stock tripled. So I immediately got on the phone, managed to get through to the CFO of Freeport. I said, has Jim Bob resigned? He goes, no. And I posted that online on Silicon Investor, and stock just collapsed right after that. I said, I just spoke with the CFO of Freeport-McMoRan. This is what he said. If you guys don't believe me, here's his phone number. Phone him. So, as I collapsed the stock back, and then eventually I covered at 9 cents.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Endless stories, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Now we get into sort of the realm of the absurd and the whodunit, and so
Yeah.
the head geologist, Michael de Guzman, the story went that he fell out of a helicopter. He committed suicide or was pushed or something like that. But you claim you've got at least 5 reasons to not so much prove, but to basically say that he's probably still alive and he got away with it. He got away with close to $30 million US. What are your reasons for that? What do you know about that?
Well, you know, I knew Mike de Guzman reasonably well, just on a cursory basis, because I'd seen him at so many different presentations. I was on the site visit with him. I'd seen him partying in the PDAC just before he fell out of the helicopter, so I knew he was. When I heard about the suicide letter, I knew there was something up. So, and Dale Hendrick, I wrote a lot of this in an article I wrote for CEO.ca back about 5 years ago. I think it was 2017. And it outlines my entire trip. And I encourage anybody who wants to follow up on this a little bit, just read this. It's a 4-pager, explains all the gory details. But when Mike de Guzman, you know, the whole thing, everything from the way they found his body, miraculously in the jungle when he fell out of the helicopter in the days before there was GPS really actively used. But what really nailed it for me is I had a very good contact, John Macbeth, in Jakarta, who was one of the top reporters in Southeast Asia at the time. And he told me he'd spoken with one of his 4 wives in Samarinda, which is Southeast Borneo, and that she'd received one night a phone call from Mike de Guzman, and she'd received on Valentine's Day one year a $25,000 US money transfer from Citibank Brazil, and then she got another $200,000 transfer. And one night her housekeeper answered the phone, and being a very religious woman, almost lost it because she was speaking with Mike on the phone, and she thought she was speaking with a ghost. So what happened was, I was pretty darn sure he was still alive. So what's really nailed it for me was I following the release of the movie Gold, I was chatting with a few friends of mine. They said, well, you know, I saw Mike de Guzman, and one friend, president of a resource company. I said, well, what's the story? He said, well, I was in Manila having lunch one day with a bunch of geologists after de Guzman had fallen out of the helicopter, and they all stood up. This Filipino gentleman was leaving the restaurant, and everybody stood up and gave him an applause. And I said, standing ovation. And then when they sat down again, my friend asked, well, who was that? And they go, well, that was Mike de Guzman.
Yeah, and you also heard that he's had plastic surgery,
Yeah.
and so potentially he's somewhere in the Philippines walking around, and he got away with it.
He did. Congrats to Mike. It cost a lot of people their lives along the way for the number of investors that committed suicide as a result of their massive financial losses, and it harmed a lot of careers of people who innocently were involved with BreX. And there's a lot of carnage when a company worth $5.6 billion collapses to zero. It broke a lot of lives, and it resulted in a lot of deaths and despair. But he made out with about 27 million US. As far as I could tell, publicly, he may have had some additional ways to make money, but it was at least 27 million US.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your recollections today, Warren.
All right. Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, fascinating
Cheers.
stuff. Warren Irwin, the president and CIO of Rosso Asset Management. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.